pickleball.
It looks like lazy people's tennis, and I think that's what it is people don't want to run, but they want to do something.
It's ping pong without the table. Well,
it looks like shitty ping pong. I like ping pong. I don't get pickleball.
Who came up with this shit? Are there stars in pickleball? Are there guys? Jim Sarney was pointing out some local person. I think a woman is like the number one pickleball player. And how come she's not getting more attention? Because the game sucks. Has that replaced shuffleboard in most of these like 5-star senior residences?
It looks like a senior game. It looks like,
yeah,
and you want to be active.
From Century Village,
yes,
right here in Pembroke Pines, it's the National Senior Pickleball Championship. And today, Irving Schwartz is going to go out there. Irving's undefeated now in singles and doubles.
And Saul Bernstein.
Yeah. The B'nai B'rith is backing today's event. Never mind. I don't think we'll see a lot of old Jewish people at Century Village playing pickleball. Is there a demand in front of the Homeowners Association to put in some courts? Take out the shuffleboard? They have tennis courts there. My mother was always telling me, why don't you come here and play tennis? Because there's like a chalk outline of the last guy that played tennis on the court there. Zakovich, I think was his name. Irving.
The time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
That had to be one of the worst waits that you could ever endure. Any type of line when you're in traffic. Maybe you're in New York City, you're waiting to pay a toll to get through the tunnel. And back in the day when they actually had like toll collectors and it wasn't just all Sun Pass and Free Pass and Easy Ride and all of that stuff. Still, it stalls out a little bit. But you'd be behind 12 cars at Century Village in Pembroke Pines. And it would take you an hour and a half to get in to see whomever. The person, you're screaming, she's having an issue, a health issue. Nothing. And there was a line of ambulances lined up like a taxi stand waiting to go in there. And they did at least get easy access. Whereas, I would sit out there for hours and just think, Ma, can't you move somewhere else? Please. Ma. But yeah, she was always trying to encourage me to play and use the athletic facilities there, which, as you could imagine, Lubie, Century Village, it wasn't like they were being overworked. In fact, I don't know that I ever saw anybody on that tennis court pulling in or out of Century Village. I don't think. I had like 4 nice tennis courts there. They were hard courts too, so especially conducive to some 80-year-old running around with knees that have been replaced several times. And you're thinking, hey, couldn't you put a little clay in there? Give these guys a little bit of a break. How about a cushion, huh? But and the golf course there was also one when it first opened up. Did you ever play the Century Village Pembroke Pines golf course, Mike Lubie Lubitz?
No, I saw it.
Every hole was like, it literally was like par 4s, but of a miniature golf variety. Here we go on the treacherous 13th here, a 217-yard par 4 with no trees, no sand traps, and nothing but fairway and green.
17 yards.
It's a good course. If you were down on yourself and you thought, geez, man, I suck at this game, I'm going to give it up. You go play that course and went, oh, look at that. 74, not bad. Well, more like 94, but that was before we factored in the allowable cheating, because we used to have, and you get in trouble for this at Century Village, where we did the traditional, and I think towards the end of my days of playing golf, we did this every time I played, and that was literally light a USGA rules book on fire at the first tee. We had a book burning, and the rest of the game was, a heck of a lot of fun after that, no question. Fueled by, massive trips and visits from the hot chick on the golf cart that had the cold beers there for $7. You were more than happy to pay it, right? Just to have her hang out for a couple of minutes. It was great. All right. Anyway, enough about my golf life in Century Village. Pickleball, though, I think this will be. A lot of people think it's social media. I think pickleball will be the undoing of society. Do you believe that, Lubie? Never mind the Republicans; they're scary enough. But pickleball will be that'll be the thing that ultimately ends it for everybody. As people gravitate more and more towards this ridiculous game. Where imagine you'll be sitting at home on a Saturday afternoon thinking, "Hey, geez, what sports are on?" And you think, "Oh, great, pickleball." Got to be kidding me. That's unbelievable. All right, many things. We jumped on the bandwagon yesterday. By the way, some live action going on. A little distracted here because this is a very attractive matchup going on at the Queen's Club. And these are the Cinch Championships, a prelude on the grass courts to Wimbledon, Lubie. So it might be worth paying a little attention to. And you have the young Italian who isn't quite in that tier yet of the real hot young studs that are playing the game. I guess you would put naturally Carlos Alcaraz number one. Is that a fair statement? He is number one in the world, or was before Djokovic took over after winning the French Open, took the number one spot. Alcaraz, and Alcaraz was life and death to get out of the first round in this tournament against some schmenk I never heard of. Some guy named Ringschlager or something. And you're like, wait a minute, this is a third set tiebreaker with the great Carlos Alcaraz, but a great player. A lot of fun to watch. I don't know. I haven't seen him play too much on grass, so we'll see if he's going to be a big factor at Wimbledon. It didn't appear like he would be based on the fact that he nearly got knocked out in the first round of this tournament. You have Holger Rune, who I've been touting, right, because of our man Patrick Mouratoglou, who we got close to. These almost sound like hockey names, don't they? What the hell are we talking about here? Yeah, that's Mouratoglou on. He's got 3 hits tonight and 2 shots on goal, no score yet. Mouratoglou. I think we got his name right when we brought him on the show, which is probably, came as big of a surprise to him as it did to us. But nonetheless, he's been touting this kid since the pandemic. Remember when he came on for those interviews? Who was he talking about, Lubie? He was talking about what must have been a then 16-year-old Holger Rune. So he's another guy, and I don't know that he's top tier yet, but capable of beating the best players and always gives it a good match. And then you have this guy, Lorenzo Musetti from Italy, who's a very exciting player. I believe, who did he beat? He beat somebody huge on the clay. It might have been Nadal when he was playing well about a year ago. And he had like a breakthrough win, and always very exciting. And he's going against your man from the University of Florida, Lubie, Ben Shelton, who is an exciting young player also. Left-handed kid, plays with a lot of enthusiasm, and it seems like he would be to tennis, I think, what Ricky Fowler was to golf, right? Good-looking kid, seems to have a great spirit about him, and everybody finds him extremely likable, and he's out there now, getting ready for Wimbledon, and I guess this is might be a second-round match against Lorenzo Musetti. So I have that going on. It's great. And then last night, I'm so happy, Lubie. I guess, was this not by design that you were watching the Marlins game, but sort of by just circumstance that you ended up watching it, right? Because you're doing your trivia contest at a local place. And you
it's been on in places, and I haven't watched. So this time I did watch. So that's, I guess, a step in the right direction. Of course, the game I watch, they can't hit water if they fall off of a fucking boat. But
there you go. You're using a little Tommy Lasorda. I like that.
Perez was great. So that was nice.
Well, and that was one of the reasons I wanted to tune into this thing was I thought, I haven't seen this Yuli Perez. Everybody's raving about him. The statistics certainly back up and justify all of this hype that's surrounding the kid. We had heard a lot about him, that he was a second coming of Jose Fernandez. Is he? I don't know.
He's doing very similar stuff.
He's like 6'10" or something. It looks like Wembanyama got signed by the Marlins. 6'5". I don't know. He's a tall drink of water, this kid. Brings it up there. He was consistently throwing his fastball between like 97 and 99. That's fast enough for me. You do the math on that. That averages out to 98 miles an hour. Is that good enough in the majors today? It seems like everybody, even Randy Jones, I think, would have thrown in the mid-90s if he was around today. Tommy John after the surgery would have thrown mid-90s. Al Downing after whatever arm problems he had that changed him from a blazing fastball pitcher to kind of a, I don't know, what would you have called him, a junk baller at the end of his career? He wasn't really in that category like Jones and Tommy John. I remember, did you ever see Tommy John in the late stages of his career after the surgery? I mean, just slop, that left-handed slop that nobody can handle, where every pitch is in the dirt when you're swinging at it because it looks like it's a meatball in the middle of the plate, and then all of a sudden, like the seams come off, and all of a sudden sawdust is spraying out of the ball, and you're like, well, what the hell is that? This guy should clobber this guy. But, all of this slop. Anyway, Perez is dealing heat He's got a curveball. He's got a slider. I don't know. Does he throw a split finger also? I don't think so. What does he have? He has like 4 pitches that are all functional on a major league level.
Yeah, he's not just some big flamethrower. Like he's a pitcher. Like that's the thing with this guy.
They've nursed him along. Well, one of the interesting things, the great Tommy Hutton was doing a color commentary yesterday, and I believe he pointed out, because there was some debate, I was texting back and forth with our own beloved Jim Sarney, the pseudo-producer of the show, who said that we should have Tommy Hutton on. I tried to explain to him the Hutt man was working late. Yeah, and
busy. He's too busy for
yeah,
us.
Well, and tough for him, you know. I mean, and the guy's older than Defo. I mean, which is hard to even imagine, since you look at Tommy Hutton, you look at me, and it's like I look like a shipwreck. By the way, I mean, it is weird. I mean, that story with the people in the submersive.
Yeah, I heard about
submersive.
Submarine. I heard for the first time yesterday about this thing. Supposedly it's been going on for a few days. I don't understand it at all. Like, this is a thing people want to go.
People go on these, wild expeditions like the space expeditions with these private companies. This is a company that's been around for a few years. Actually, the CEO of the company is on board there, and in all likelihood is not with us anymore, because it seems like this thing, might have gotten crushed by the pressure and blown to bits when. Whatever it was, I mean, there were like sort of catastrophic warnings that preceded all of these voyages, going back to 2018. It's been done a few times. You pay $250,000 to go down and see the Titanic, which I didn't realize. I thought the Titanic sunk in the middle of nowhere. Lubie, what is it doing off the coast of Boston? That's where they were leaving from, Boston. Didn't the Titanic, end up in the middle of like the North Sea or something?
It hit an iceberg.
How the hell did it get there?
Wasn't it iceberg? Isn't that the whole thing?
It's an iceberg, yeah. But I mean, how did the wreckage end up? I don't know how many miles it is offshore there, but they're leaving from like Canada, Nova Scotia, Boston to try and find these guys. Somebody pointed out, and there's some merit to this thought, that a boat with 100 migrants could sink and nobody searches for them. But 5 millionaires or billionaires are caught in a little submarine, and the whole world is like looking for these guys. Which, look, I hope they find them, and I hope they're okay. It doesn't sound good, because what's today? Wednesday. Supposedly they only have enough oxygen on this thing to sustain, breathing until Thursday morning. And there's no sign so far.
They've lost total communication. Like, I don't get how. Like, how do you go on something where it's possible to, like, I don't know.
They lost communication about an hour and a half into them submerging themselves into the ocean. God. About an hour and a half later, all of a sudden, nada coming from this submersive, as it's known, and nobody's heard from them since, obviously, and the search started, I guess, almost sometime soon after that, and nothing. They can't find them. They're either on the surface or buried at the bottom of the sea. So the likelihood they're on the surface is not there. But how weird is that, too? Would you ever see yourself doing that? I mean, can you imagine flying on one of these cockamamie space vehicles that Jeff Bezos made while he was banging this Laura Sanchez? And you're like, well, what? I mean, who worked on this thing? But there had been, one of the people that worked for the company said, hey, this isn't a good idea.
Oh,
in
really?
2018, and then they brushed them off. They said, forget about it. What do you know about this shit? Nothing. And now, I mean, the search, it's agonizing, right, to see these people and realize, wow, I mean, that would be a horrible way to go, wouldn't it, Lubie? Running out of air?
Especially as a billion. I mean, I get, look, when people get money like that, they get bored. I don't know. Life's plenty exciting for me.
One guy was like an adventurer. He had actually done the space thing. This guy from England, he was a billionaire. I guess, is maybe, unfortunately, the appropriate term. But could you see yourself doing that, Lubie? $250,000 to go down and see the Titanic. I've seen the movie. What do I need to see the shipwreck?
Who gives a shit?
And risk my life to do it. What are you, crazy?
I don't understand the shipwreck. Like, surely people will scuba dive to see shipwrecks. I get the scuba diving thing, because the fish down there are things we don't see every day, and it's beautiful. The reefs are amazing. But I don't understand this. I never got the shipwreck thing. It's just a boat. Like, there's a boat. Go down the intercoastal. There's boats everywhere. Like, well, who gives a shit about some fucking boat? Like, I don't know.
Well, if it's the Etosha, I'm thinking it might be worth looking for. It's possible.
It's a
It
treasure.
turned out to be worthwhile. I mean, if I'm looking at a shipwreck, it isn't the Titanic, man. They emptied that thing out a long time ago, didn't they? But what are
You
you going to
think?
go? I mean, find a chandelier down there? I mean, you don't actually get out and explore with diving gear, as and this thing is like 2 miles deep. The possibility of something going wrong looms a lot larger than my desire to go down there and see some rusty old ship that was built in the 1920s, the Titanic. Unfortunately, the ship was a little heavy, and I don't mean to make light of it because a lot of people perished in that thing. But yeah, not necessarily my cup of tea. So we wish those people the best. Hopefully, they'll find them today before they run out of steam there, and that would be a nice end to that story. So we did end the Marlins, joyride yesterday, at least temporarily. I mean, it's no disgrace if they win 2 out of 3 against the Toronto Blue Jays after coming home off this successful road trip that they had. You would have to say, and the debate yesterday was, when do we make the assessment that the Marlins are a force to legitimately be reckoned with? That maybe they're not top tier. They're probably not going to overtake the Braves anytime during the season. The Braves appear to be a far better team overall, but there would be no disgrace in ending up in the wild card this year with Skip Schumacher in his first season. We didn't know much about him. You had to think, okay, he's a solid baseball man. That's a weird definition of a person and a kind of a strange way to perceive somebody. Yeah, he's a baseball man. What does that mean exactly to you? You hear that more in football. He's a football man.
Football guy.
What does he have?
Football
Seams
guy.
on his forehead? What is the deal with that? Schumacher was a baseball man, hardcore, right? He looks the part. Looks like he's got a little drill sergeant in him. He's going to have those pitchers running over to first base. Come on, you could lose a little of that belly fat, huh? Forster, let's hustle over there. Remember how fat Terry Forster was? He wasn't always that fat. Well, what happened to him? he was dining out with the gambling gourmet. No, I mean, do you remember that? Do you remember this guy, Terry Forster? David Letterman he kind of popularized him outside of the sporting world by referring to him as a fat tub of goo. Huge. The only guy I'd seen that was that big. I mean, and I had covered a lot of baseball where you went into the locker room, saw the players with their shirts off, their jock straps, the whole thing. I mean, very exciting, right? And kind of raunchy it was. But Russell, that was Gaylord Perry's brother. Was the fattest guy I've ever seen. What was it? Jim Perry? Fat. I mean, I made Butterbean Esch look like he was Sugar Ray Leonard. Really did. I remember looking at this guy and going, "That's a professional athlete." I mean, and it wasn't, like a football team. Okay, you're going to see a guy who, like Sherman Plunkett, who weighs 320 at a time where nobody weighed over 275 that was playing offensive line. I don't even know if they weighed 260 back then, huh? What do you think the average weight of an offensive lineman was in, what would that be, like 1969, 70?
Yeah, like 250, 260.
250, yeah, it was huge. Wow, I believe this guy is 250.
Yeah, remember, they didn't work out. They didn't eat the way that they do now. They didn't do nutrition. It was very different, the linemen in the 60s to the linemen in the 90s.
Well, and completely different because they weren't even full-time football players. I mean, I believe if you went back to that period of time, I know it was prevalent in baseball where guys had jobs. Didn't Yogi Berra sell like insurance while he wasn't playing baseball or something? Used cars. I think, hey, look, Yogi's on the lot. Now, who could have turned down purchasing anything that Yogi was selling? Nobody, right? You even drank a bunch of Yoo-Hoo probably at one time in your life. A horrible chocolate water drink that somehow had some appeal. Why? Because Yogi Berra was selling it. Otherwise, you would have said, dishwater. Stuff sucks. All right, so what did you make of this Marlins game last night? I don't know. You can't read too much into any one individual baseball game. Your perspective on it earlier this morning on Defo on 5 there on the 5 Reasons Sports Network, Lubie, was you were looking, as a lot of people do, at the Marlins lineup, top to bottom. And, okay, Arise is writing a hell of a story this year, and he was a recent addition, came in this season, first time, and we have like a 400 hitter sitting there in the second spot in the order. And then Soler, you can't deny it. I mean, as much as we were getting annoyed by Jim Sarney constantly pounding home, hey, did you see Soler? I said, yeah, I see him. He's hitting 198. And
Yeah.
Jim would point out, well, he's got a lot of home runs. He's got like 5, 6 home runs at the time. I thought, all right, so big deal. It's not enough to justify the ineptitude that he exhibits in 4 out of every 5 at bats. That's all you heard. But he's legitimate at this point. I mean, his season has been manifested in the idea that, yes, he's a legitimate power hitter, a dangerous bat, and especially so, Lubie, as we pointed out the other day on the show, after stealing the material from something we read. We didn't present it as our own, did we, Lubie? That after the 7th inning, Soler is particularly reliable. We did, credit whatever the source was on that, which I believe was it might have been the great Tommy Hutton, the aforementioned Tommy Hutton. Nonetheless, you look at their lineup and you're thinking, what? You're not seeing it.
I'm like, this is their lineup?
Bunch of schmanks, right?
Like, what the hell? I'm like,
Wendell, Birdie. The other guy, the catcher they got, hit the ball hard last night. And his name escapes me. Something with an H. Anyway, and I'm always happy to see any alternative, unfortunately. Did you realize this? I mean, Stallings, who has been under the Mendoza line, and horrifically so, since his acquisition as a member of the Miami Marlins. Did he win a Gold Glove as a catcher, this guy Stallings, at some point in time in his career? A Gold Glove as a catcher. I mean, holy Pudge Rodriguez, what are we talking about here? Because nobody ever, says anything disparaging about this guy. Is that because he's so great defensively that we could forget about Johnny Bench?
He won the Golden Glove Award in 2021.
Wow, 21. So it wasn't that long ago. So that implies then that he was playing on a regular basis and played the majority of games. Probably what? I mean, a catcher, if he plays 130 games, is that a normal number for a big time starting catcher? Maybe even more. How many games a season does a catcher just have to sit out? Or I guess he could DH at this stage too.
I mean, they got to miss games, but like that's the thing. When they got him, it was supposed to be a big deal. Like he was supposedly really good with the Pirates. I mean, every time I've seen him or read about him, he's been a disaster. Like he can't hit the side of a fucking barn.
See, now that's the reverse Kyle Korver for me, because I keep jumping on the idea that you can't have guys in 2 power positions, third base and catcher, where Segura is injured right now, but and he seems like he's a diligent guy that may someday figure it out, but the guy's been hitting under 200. He finally hit his first home run recently, like in the last week on that road trip. Gene Segura, he hit a big home run. I believe the Marlins were down 2-0 at the time, and he hit a home run to make it 2-1 in the ninth. They went on to win the game 3-2. You're thinking, wow, if this guy could wake up, it'd be great. But when have you seen teams that were successful have both their third baseman and catcher, 2 power hitting positions, where you would also like to see, the guy hit for a little bit of average too, but more so with the third baseman. I mean, you're used to seeing guys out there that hit like, I don't know if it happens anymore, but you got Mike Schmidt hitting like 320 with 40 home runs and a great fielder as well. I mean, it's a power position, much like your outfield positions are supposed to be, at least a couple of them. And you have 2 guys that have a combined, I believe, 1 home run. I don't think Stallings has a home run this year, and he's hitting 167. And the other, and these guys are occasionally paired together in your starting lineup. They're 2 of your 9 hitters. So I'm with you. It's baffling, isn't it? When you look at the Marlins lineup and you think, how the hell are they doing this?
Well, and that's the thing is, it's not baffling. It's almost like the Heat. Like I hate calling them scrubbies. The Heat role players where you're just waiting for them to come back to earth. Like, yeah. So Laird's woken up and Arise is hitting really well, but is Garcia even in the lineup? I didn't see Garcia.
He's injured, I believe. Yeah. Okay. Which I don't know if that was by design. Did they have somebody come and do a Nancy Kerrigan on him?
Yeah. That's the thing. Garcia's been
I thought I saw Jeff Galooly as a member of the coaching staff. What was the other guy's name? Sean Eckert? Was that the guy that
Yeah,
actually did the deed for Tanya Harding?
yeah.
Yeah. He was a real thug. He could have been a catcher. Right?
Yeah,
He had that
actually,
look. Yeah.
Stallings. But
Yeah.
that's the thing is like three of the five big moves they made over the last couple of years, Stallings, Garcia, and Segura, are been useless. They just have been nothing. Like Fortes was the catcher yesterday. I don't know who Fortes is. They had a guy.
Yeah, he's
Hampton.
okay. He's all right.
The guy Hampton was playing in the outfield. I've never heard of him. I was just watching it, going, "Ooh, what is going on?"
Yeah, like when did Peter Frampton turn into a pro baseball player? What's he doing out in center field for my club? The Yuli Perez thing, though, was legitimate, and that was exciting. And you're thinking, is that enough? And you're wondering, how can this sustain itself? The guy, Tommy Hutton, I started to say, pointed out that he had only pitched about, I think, his top number of innings that he'd pitched. He's 20 years old. In any one season in organized baseball or in Major League professional baseball, not Major League, but in the minors, he'd never pitched more than 75 innings in a season.
God.
So he's already pitched like 72 innings this year. So what does that mean? For I mean, and you were wondering if they were going to take him out after the sixth inning. He had only thrown, I think the pitch count was at, in the low to mid 70s at that stage. So you thought, wow, this kid's going to be able to, go deeper than he ever has before. He's never gone past six. He's been coming on with each successive start. He seems to be getting better and better, which is great. So you're thinking, all right, let's see if this guy can go seven tonight. They went to the bullpen. They brought in a guy that every time I see him, he gets shelled. But lately he's been pitching a lot better, this Dylan Floro. And then finally they got to Tanner Scott. And that's... I don't know that you can really, peg this as some horrific outing by Tanner Scott, could you? Because, the run that scored, the eventual winning run, which was the first run, since the Marlins never put a run on the board. Okay, a solid double. He got the first guy out. He gives up a double, and then like a bloop single just falls between the second baseman, the center, and the right fielder. Nothing you could do about it. It was a flare. And that scores a run. And they try to peg the guy out at the plate, which they had no chance. I don't know if Schumacher was steaming. Did somebody cut that ball off? I don't think so, because the runner ended up on second base, and that produced a second run. Which, what, Lubie? Do you say maybe that alters your strategy approaching your own half of the inning? That now you're thinking you only need one run to tie the game. That second run was big.
The one run was one thing. Giving up the second run was annoying because it felt like they could get out of the inning just giving up the one run. Then you'd have the bottom of the eighth and the bottom of the ninth to scratch away and get one run. And again, they actually had two men on in the bottom of the eighth, and they had the order in the ninth. So it was like, okay, you should be able to pull one run out of your ass. That second run was the run that scared the shit out of me. And they ended up never getting
double play grounder. Wow, is there anything worse that you could do? You'd be better off striking out in that spot.
Strike out. Yeah. Like
I don't always, it's weird too. Cause is it not a little bit of luck where, certain times a guy grounds into a double play and you're thinking, oh geez, that was just a horrible approach on that at bat. But every now and then, a guy just stings a ball and you end up hitting into a double play. Unfortunately, I don't really remember, the exact velocity. I think I turned away for a second, and the next thing I know, there was Jesus Sanchez being thrown out by a mile at first base in what was a painful inning-ending double play. Look at us, though, Lubie. We had no interest in any of this just a few short days ago. None. And now that we focused our attention on it, holy Rachel Nichols, I think we are the kiss of death. If there was ever going to be further evidence, Mr. Trump, that what you did was illegal. I love that the Trumpster, too, is on TV. They keep showing now, on CNN. They always have the lawyer that quit or whatever, got fired. He was representing Trump at the arraignment or like right before the arraignment. And he was going on TV as a spokesman for Trump. And then I don't even think he made it to the arraignment. Probably because he knew he was going to get stiffed. But he's been the analyst on this stuff. And, they were kind of, he sort of danced around this, very delicately, even though he's no longer representing Trump. But when they said, do you think it's advisable for your, a client of yours to go on TV and basically admit to his guilt? And he diplomatically said that that probably wasn't the smartest approach. But how wild is that, huh? I mean, the guy's on TV saying, "Yeah, I did it." It's is he?
It's no strategy of just admitting you did the wrong and just trying to belittle what the wrong is. I don't understand
Yeah.
it. Wrong is wrong. Like I don't like. I get there are degrees of committing crimes, sure, but the committing the crime is still committing a crime. Like this idea that, well, if I said I did it and then I belittle it, then it's okay. No, that's not true at all. Especially when you were the fucking president. It's like I don't know. I don't
I
understand.
wonder this. I mean, taking Trump out of the equation, which naturally, if you could tell from the tone of our commentary over the last what, have we been living with this for 8 years now since the year he announced he was running for president? I didn't mind him as a television host. Do whatever you want, right? I mean, you got a show that really is awful that everybody loves. Fantastic. Make all the money you want. However, he did it in business. I mean, you're looking at this guy's, cachet of real estate properties, and you're thinking, does he really own all of that shit? How much
Yeah, no,
How much could you possibly own? It's incredible,
no, they
right?
just use
Golf courses in Scotland. I mean, the buildings in New York, Mar-a-Lago, all of this stuff. Bedminster, Doral. You go to Doral. Trump owns the fucking place. It's unbelievable, right? Supposedly, doing this what without having any money. He's got to have something
well,
stashed away.
he puts his name on them. He doesn't. He might have at some point owned some of them, but the majority of them are just him leasing out his name and getting paid for it. He has nothing to do with the properties. He has
It's a
no
good racket.
involvement with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. You can make your name that valuable. The problem is, it's gone the other way now, where his name is a detriment, and you're actually scared to have the Trump name anywhere fucking near you.
That's great, though. I mean, he goes on this interview and just says, my thought would be, was national security actually damaged? I guess. I mean, I know he had the one document that he was waving around. We don't know what was on it, right? It might have been about Iranian missile capabilities, whatever. And and he's such a schmuck that he seems like he just does this because he wants everybody to think, "Wow, you're the great Donald Trump." Okay,
Yes.
so but did he really? I mean, did he compromise national security? By having all of this stuff like laid out on the stage there of the defunct ballroom at Mar-a-Lago. I don't know. I mean, that's a tough one to judge. Was that his intention? What was was he? Doing this out of some kind of sinister plot to somehow bilk the Saudis out of money or whatever. I don't know. I mean, that's a hard one to put together. And I don't even think, that speculation will ever, we'll never know what the hell the guy wanted to do with this because he won't say. And then he's saying, oh, I just happen to have these top secret documents mixed in there with a pair of old golf shoes and some T-shirts. And all the while, I mean, the interviewer for Fox News, what happened to Fox News? Have they turned on the Trumpster? Because this guy was hammering him pretty good. I mean, this was not the Peter Gammons, Alex Rodriguez interview by any stretch. It was not Katie Couric, my friends.
No, the Brett guy went right after him. He's like, dude, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Who hired him, man? When did Fox put a dogged investigator on? To actually, I mean, they challenged Trump more than CNN did when they did that, mamby-pamby thing there and allowed Trump to, go on for 90 minutes spewing a completely false agenda. It was crazy. Anyway, it's unfortunate that, we had to get on that. But you ever seen anything like it, right? Where a guy goes on TV and he's got a criminal case in front of him and he essentially says, yeah, I did it. Unreal. What a world it is. What a world. All right. So what do we make? I mean, what's going to happen with Yuli Perez? What is it about stud Marlin pitchers that they're afflicted with no run support? I don't think that's been the case for Perez as he accumulated a record of 4-1 to this point. So he was obviously getting at least a little something there from what you say is a nondescript and inept batting order.
That lineup is amazing. I was just looking at it. I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, I get Arise and Soler's been good the last month and a half, but
Arise is great. I am rooting for this guy to hit 400. I don't. Yeah. I doubt that it's possible, right? There has to be a time in July or August where the heat just gets to this kid. No.
Yeah,
But
I
even
mean,
his
no,
outs are sharp line drives. I mean, just he hits a line drive virtually every time. He is the reincarnation at the plate of Rod Carew. Absolutely. I mean, a little bit different size. Plays second base, but and Carew, I guess what eventually moved to first base, which he's also played, and a left-handed hitter that just strokes the ball. Everything that you wanted to see in that Tom Umansky tape, that's a rise. Where in three parts he actually just whoop 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 and hits the ball right into that sewer drain pipe, and you're thinking, yeah, that's the way it's supposed to go. He's great and a lot of fun to watch. They finally, what we always say, Libby, if you're not going to be good, be entertaining.
yep,
And it really helps if you're entertaining and good,
yeah.
which maybe they are. So we're hoping for the best. No run support for Yuli Perez last night. He goes 6. It was brilliant. Encouraging signs. Team seems to be a very together bunch. Have you noticed that in Major League Baseball? I mean, these guys are wildly celebrating regular season victories.
Yeah, that was
With
weird.
Yeah, I mean, with the kind of enthusiasm that makes you believe, yeah, these guys are really into it.
The
All
professor and I
these
were like, yeah,
multimillionaires.
why are the Blue Jays celebrating a regular season game like they won the World Series? Like, it was weird.
And they're in next to last place. And as we said, the most dynamite division in baseball there, the American League East. And you're thinking, well, yeah, well, the Yankees are in that division. The Yankees are also Rans right now in that division. 9 and a hook back of Tampa Bay and 5.5 back of the Baltimore Orioles, who there's a mystery team. I couldn't tell you anything about the Baltimore Orioles. Did Jim Palmer make a comeback? What do you think? You got
Coward.
Wally Bunker back on the roster?
No,
I don't
I
know.
have
Was
no
Wally
idea.
Bunker? He was a White Sox player, Wally Bunker.
I don't,
Was he ever on the Birds there? Wally
I
Bunker.
don't know that name at all.
I had a Wally
Oh,
Bunker mitt. That's why I know it. I had a great Rawlings glove that I bought. It was one of my few, self indulgences as a kid. I had a little bit of guilt then because I was working at Shea, and I said, you know what, I'm going to buy myself a top-notch baseball glove. I never had one. I always had one that you had to sew the fingers together. I don't know, Willie Mays model, and I think Willie might have played with it when he broke in as a rookie. it was in that bad a shape. Did you ever stitch the fingers together or sew them together on a glove that was deteriorating, Louis? Never. You always had good equipment when it came to baseball. All right. Well, and this
I
was a
didn't
big step forward because Rawlings was, I mean, a brand that was, like top notch. It'd be like, Mayo going to Carbone or something. And you're thinking, well, I mean, this is going to be great, but it's going to be costly. And I had a Wally Bunker model glove. Now, was he known especially for his fielding? I want to say no. Why would
I
Wally
don't.
Bunker endorse a baseball glove? Look up Wally Bunker for me, will you? And and there it is. I mean, that's where we should end our discussion on baseball. We just spent 42 minutes analyzing a Marlins game, Louis, with a little bit of Trump mixed in and some other stuff. And we have things to get to here on the show. Of course, your favorite topic, and you're seeing a lot of Wembanyama. He's going to be on Good Morning America. Is he making the rounds, all of the morning news shows? Because I find the kid extremely interesting. Have you seen
Okay.
interviews with Wembanyama?
I haven't seen
Very
him talk.
confident for a string bean of a kid. No, he's excellent. He really seems to have it together. In a sort of subdued, extremely confident but humble way. Does that make any sense? Kind of guy that you could really root for. It'll be interesting too. I mean, imagine when he's in there toe to toe with Chet Holmgren if Holmgren comes back, and Wembanyama, survives. Like, does he end up playing summer league ball, Wembanyama, as a rookie? Is that sort of a mandatory thing,
Yes,
or if you
yes,
have
100%. It's not mandatory, but they want to showcase the summer league, and he is going to be a rookie, and he's going to be a young rookie. Yes, he will play summer league for sure.
Do we take up a residency in Las Vegas here, like we were J-Lo, Lubie, and start following Wembanyama? And maybe this could be your opening, Lubie. If you could get the inside. Do you speak any French? Parlez-vous
No,
un peu de français?
my
No?
wife's actually almost fluent, so maybe I could take Shirley with us, and she could be our translator.
I know enough French to probably, accidentally insult somebody. And the only Spanish I picked up was from the Mexicans that were working in the kitchens of the restaurants I worked in Los Angeles. And, I would say that some of the things that they had to say that I picked up in Spanish were particularly unflattering. Questioning everything from your manhood to the status of your mother. Yeah, that was about it. That's all I picked up in Spanish. I wish I had taken Spanish, though. It was one of the few regrets of my life, Libby. You speak a little bit of Spanish, but not enough to actually, like, if you were, say, in a boxing ring like I was many times, and you're having to do an in-ring interview after a fight, and the guy only speaks Spanish, it was always awkward to go through an interpreter. It's amazing that Jim Gray, having done this for years and years and years, never bothered to take a Berlitz course in Spanish,
Well, I
so
think
that
he'd be
he, like the great Freddie Pacheco, could just interpret on the spot. That's a real
yeah,
asset.
right. The interpreter situation sucks because the guy will talk for like 10 minutes.
Yes.
And then the interpreter will be like, he says he had a good fight. It's like, dude, he just talked for 15. There's no way.
Yeah, he just
that
told
that's
Margarino to go fuck himself, and all we hear is, yes, he said he had a tough time, in the second round, but after that, he thought he won the fight. Like,
It's
what?
like, dude, he's full of it.
That's like that guy. I don't know who he is. Is it the same guy now with Showtime that used to be with HBO that was doing the interpretations in the corner? Because he's way off. He has to be way off. There's no way that what they're saying in the corner in any way relates in any context to what this guy is telling you. No, they're telling him to throw the jab. Meanwhile, they're telling this guy that he's a worthless piece of shit. You can tell that he's saying that in Spanish, the trainer. And this guy's kind of, soft selling. Well, yeah, he's saying use the jab more and, don't stand right in front of him and get hit in the face.
You hear all these words that are curse words, and the guy never says them. The guy's
Right.
always
The
like,
guy's like, chinga la madre.
yeah, he's like, you're close. Keep going. It's like, no, he didn't say that. I know he didn't say that.
Nothing. Yeah, nothing close to that. But yeah, that isn't a regret of mine. I don't know. I mean, could you speak enough Spanish, enough and well enough to, if some guy, whatever it was after a baseball game, you're interviewing somebody that is not fluent enough in English to feel comfortable. And we always expect this. I don't, I guess I used to sort of resent this. I don't know. Maybe I was an Americanish Schweinhund, in this context, because you're thinking, come on, man, learn some English, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it would be like asking me to do an interview in Spanish, even if I spoke a little bit of Spanish. I don't know. Would I really feel comfortable going on international television and using Spanish on somebody? But we expect that of people that, come to this country that speak other languages. How hypocritical, Louis.
100%. I speak okay Spanish. When people are having a conversation, I can pick apart the gist of the conversation, and I can throw out really broken Spanish, but there's no way I'd be sitting there interviewing people in Spanish. But that's my problem is the interpreters are not always better. Like a lot of the time when they try to translate, they juxtapose words and it's a whole fucking, like when you're with someone,
a nightmare. Yeah.
When you're with someone who speaks Spanish and they'll watch an interpreter, they just start laughing because they're like, yeah, that was a total disaster. They're like, that's
not even close. Right. Yeah. The guy just told Jim Gray to go fuck himself and his entire family, and he wishes them all dead. And the interpreter says, he says, Jim, you know what? It's a pleasure to be on your show. It's like, what? You got to be kidding me. The most awkward situation, and I always love this, because occasionally, and I remember this distinctly, I was doing an in-ring interview with Sultan Ibragimov, and you're thinking, who the hell is Sultan Ibragimov? He at one time, and I would imagine it was a very brief period of time, held the WBO heavyweight championship of the world. He is being promoted by the Seminole tribe and their Warriors boxing. And he was one of those guys that they were bringing up. I would say that he would have been a high-quality club fighting heavyweight. I mean, it's not like he reminded you of Rocky Marciano or anything. He was like about a 5'10" white guy. What wasn't, all that heavy for heavyweight standards of today, probably weighing 235 maybe, something like that. A decently put-together guy, not particularly exciting to watch. And he fought Shannon Briggs in Atlantic City. And he ended up winning because Briggs never threw a punch in the entire fight. It was the biggest disgrace of a defense of a championship I think I've ever seen. Since the 98 Marlins. biggest disgrace of a defense of a championship. And you can't even blame the 98 Marlins for that because they weren't the 97 Marlins. It wasn't as if the 97 team came back and they were like, ah. So anyway, Shannon Briggs, who might be a little bit, I don't know. Do you even want to say anything? You've met Shannon Briggs, have you not? Did he not come out to one of our
Yes.
tiki bar shows?
I did a show with Marvin Jones where he was on the entire show with us. Ken, the professor, Marvin Jones, Briggs, and I. And he was a nice enough guy, but he
could be very engaging, actually. Yes.
He was still fighting. He was like in his 40s and he was still like fighting. It's like, dude, you weren't fighting 10 years ago.
No, even though you were irrelevant for the last decade, I'm glad your career is continuing at such a high level, Mr. Briggs. That particular fight, I mean, it was awful. I mean, it was the most excruciating 12 rounds of boxing I've ever witnessed. I think, well, I don't know if that's a fair statement. But, Briggs never threw a punch. And I told a story. I happened to be walking with the promoter, Leon Margulies, who was promoting a fight for Warriors Boxing. And we're walking on a boardwalk somewhere in Atlantic City before the fight. This was in the afternoon. And Margulies just holds up the phone. He had a cell phone. And he says, listen to this. And it's a screaming, raving lunatic on the other end of the phone, saying things that were incomprehensible, but once again, didn't sound particularly flattering or making you feel like this guy was having a wonderful time. And then it turned out it was Briggs. And he was pissed off about something, and he was saying that he wasn't going to actually get in the ring and fight that night, which he didn't. But the story, I mean, all began with this whole idea of interpretations. And the Russian guys, I'm interviewing a Bragimov after the fight, who won the fight on a split decision somehow, even though Briggs never threw a punch. And the Russian guys get angrier than the guy in the that actually made the statement, the interpreter. So Bragimov would say something, and then the interpreter all of a sudden was like screaming and red-faced as he was delivering what it was that Bragimov said. And I thought, well, that's interesting here because, I don't think what he said was that inflammatory. He was kind of a quiet, more of a subdued guy. And so what do you think? I mean, was that just pure embellishment? Because who was going to know, whether the Russian interpreter was, on the money or not? There was no way to tell. That thing, I don't know if you could find this, though. I'd be curious to go back and see exactly what my reaction was. Because I think it was a pay-per-view event that might have had, I don't even know if it got a dozen buys, Lubie, which would be an all-time record low for any. And they were charging like $9.99. It was a bargain. Obviously, the Seminole tribe at that time. It was like a $9.99 pay-per-view heavyweight championship fight. Nobody had ever heard. I mean, the one guy was finished 10 years before at that time. And, who the hell is Sultan Ibrahimov? You ever seen him do anything since?
No, I had heard of it because he won the title, but it was like, who the fuck is he bragging about?
He fought a bunch of times. They did a good job promoting him. They really did. And then they found Shannon Briggs on it. I don't know what they said to Briggs at the last minute that got him to a tee off on virtually everybody. But when he got in the ring, he was like, literally stood there like this for 12 rounds, did nothing. You could have fought the same fight, Lubie. And the fact that, he was relatively undamaged at the end of this thing was remarkable. But, Russian interpreters were probably the worst. All right, we're going to come back with more. Tony Segreto is going to join us. Tony is ready to fire up pretty soon here. A little old school with Tony. It's always good having Tony on the show. We didn't get to Lubie's favorite topic, which is NBA offseason, which is very much in focus right now as the Portland Trailblazers are supposedly, I mean, NBA rumors are great, aren't they? Trying to put together a mega package for Bam Adebayo, Lubie. Bam Adebayo. So forget about Damian Lillard coming here. Maybe Bam is going there. Holy Steve Prefontaine.
Yes, that's what the Heat are going to do. The Heat are going to go from being in the finals, having Jimmy Butler in the end of his prime, to rebuilding. Yes, that's what's going to happen.
I want to come back in my next lifetime as Pat Riley, not just because of the success that he's had. I mean, but this guy, I mean, he seems to be deep-rooted. Heat culture just comes from, it's like the Dalai Lama is speaking. It's amazing. Did you see this press conference with Pat Riley? I mean, he hasn't even been in the spotlight. And the reverence. I don't know. I get like Bill Walton when I start talking about Pat Riley. I get like Walton talking about the wizard, John Wooden, where it was
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the reverence of this man. It's unbelievable. And he does it in such a, now he does it in a very subdued. He was always subtle, Riley, but, there was such a glamour and an aura attached to him that, it was thus spoke Zarathustra. That was a tough one, Louis, to try early in the morning. Thus spoke, can I do take two on that? Zarathustra, right? I mean, you can hear in the background, the slight strumming of a cello or, maybe a harp as he's speaking. Well, I mean, it's not even the Rinaldi music that we need on this thing. I mean, it's something of a higher level, as if it was coming from God himself, Pat Riley. And he says, not taking a sledgehammer to this team. He was talking about how UD put his arm around him, like by surprise. He came up to him when his brother had died. And the guy's choking up, and I'm thinking, I want to have that kind of depth to me. I mean, what do you think, Libby? Am I going crazy here?
yes.
Am I just a guy that was always going to be on a joyride and always on the periphery of the surface of everything that had any meaning? What do you think, Libby? Here I am talking sports for a living for 50 years. Crazy. What meaning is there to that? Can I put this on my headstone? Defo, sportscaster. But Riley, I mean, he seems to live at a depth, philosophically and emotionally that, I mean, maybe is only reserved for guys of that, caliber of integrity, which would be what? Tony Segreto, who's going to join us here in a few minutes on the show. All right, enough of that. I feel like I'm in Apocalypse Now, right? And I'm talking about Colonel Kurtz. The man is the man is the man. Dennis Hopper, right? Remember that? That was great. You ever see that scene? One of the great scenes in movie history, my friend. All right, we're coming back. Speaking of great scenes, Tony Segreto, it'll be great seeing him. And we'll have him joining us for a little old school. That's brought to you by Texas Roadhouse Restaurants. Later on today, I mean, do we do it again, Lubie? I've been trying to, eat a very healthy and clean diet. I did deviate a little bit last night, but with a portion so small that I think it was more than excusable by the gods of weight loss, where they said, if you put it in a small cup, even if you go back 3 times, you're still better off than I would be if I ate like a normal human being and just, I'm going to eat all of this shit anyway. Why don't I just put it all on one plate at one time, right?
Yes, you have 3 portions. It's not one small portion. That's one big ass portion.
What about a little slice of that Flakowitz Knish I was talking about?
I think that's
Did you factor that
fine.
in? Just
I
a
think
little
it's fine.
slice. I just shaved this thing. It
Just
was
don't
great. But
mayo.
we'll be at the Even Keel Fish Shack, and it'll be hard to resist. I mean, honestly, the fish and chips thing there is so amazing.
It's great.
And it looks like it's in a big fried thing, but it's so light that you get the dual pleasure of thinking that you're biting into like a piece of fried chicken that was the best you ever had, and then it's this delicate fish inside that normally is not the quality that you get if you order fish and chips, where you're thinking, where'd you get this fish? Out of the sewer? What the hell is that, man? It tastes like shit. Why is it so dark in there? This is tender, flaky, melt in your mouth. Mahi.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Do we do it again, Lubie? He's not faking it anymore like he was, where, I can't eat that.
He's going.
I should be, but I think you have to make certain exceptions. Do you not? Maybe even if it sets you back a peg from your main goal, which is to be in a reasonably acceptable weight by the time that 72nd birthday rolls around. Which, by the standards of a few years ago, I saw some pictures of me from a couple of years ago.
You've lost a ton of weight. It's crazy.
I was fucking fat, man. That was scary. That was more frightening looking at those pictures than passing out the other day was.
Oh, God.
Which I look like I just went 12 at Lupe Pintor. Big welt on the right arm there. You bruise easily when you get older. That's one thing for sure. All right, coming back with Tony Segreto. There are no bruises there, man. This guy is top-notch. We love him, and you will too. Tony Segreto going to join us here for a little old school, and then we'll come back, and Howard Beck. This guy is an excellent basketball analyst. I mean, we have some good ones come on the show, including our own Scoop Skolnick. Well, are we his own, or is he Ewan, or are we his? Which is it? Because we're on his thing, and then he comes on our thing. So can
It's
we
all
call him
both.
our own Scoop Skolnick?
Yeah, he's a
Kind
little
of is,
both.
yeah. Yeah. It's a little of
We've been
both.
having him on for years.
Yeah, it's a player to be named later. But Howard Beck is right up there with anybody that we have on the show. Talking about baskets, Grant Long, I mean, knows his stuff for sure. Beck, very, very matter of fact, too. Almost a Jack Webb of journalism when it comes to talking about basketball. We finally, after 20 or so sessions, got him to crack a little bit of a chuckle. And Louie and I started celebrating. Well, we did it. We did it. We got Howard Beck to laugh at one of our jokes. And I don't think he realized how much of a monumental accomplishment we perceived that to be. All right, Tony's going to be with us in a second. Back with Tony Segreto in a moment. Now that.
The time.
It's 7:59. Ponies in Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in Plantation, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar, and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
Are you looking to buy your first home? Have you been turned down for a loan? Do you need to refinance or get money out of your home? Call Michael Kodsey, CEO of Choice Mortgage. He's been helping the South Florida community get mortgages for 30 years.
Hi, this is Michael Kodsey, CEO of Choice Mortgage. We have the most competitive fixed rates in the market. Call me 24/7, 561-441-2730. And remember, I don't just work banking hours. To make the right choice for your home, call Choice Mortgage today.
What we gonna do right here is go back, way back into time.
We are now kicking it old school with the one and only Tony Segreto. Brought to you by Catholic Health and Texas Roadhouse.
Tell me, doctor, where are we going this time?
Welcome back to the show. Jeff DeForest. We got Mike Lubie Lubitz and a dancing man. Good job at the chair dancing. He's got his UM mug. He's got his hair slicked back. He looks great. We welcome to the show for a little old school, the great Tony Segreto. Tony, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. How are you, Defo?
We're doing great, man. You sound good, kid. You would appreciate this because I think you're also a fan of this kind of situation. I'm, watching some of these grass court events that are taking place around the world, getting ready for Wimbledon here, and they have a matchup of young guns. It's kind of like when two young, undefeated, fighters would get in the ring, and you're going to decide, duke it out, and see who's best.
When Agassi and Borg got together.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. This kid from Florida, the University of Florida, I don't know if you've seen this guy, Ben Shelton. He's a very exciting young player, and he's going against a young Italian kid who I believe is 19 also. Shelton might be 20, named Zetti, and it's a packed place. The Queen's Club in England, a prelude to Wimbledon, and nice to see these two young guys duking it out. So that's been my entertainment through part of the first hour of the show. How are you doing, my friend? What have you been zeroing in on? Anything in particular? Because there's a lot to talk about here on the program today.
No, in fact, I was wondering what we were going to talk about this morning, but I didn't have that.
Well, I wonder about it every day, too. I have my little sheet here, and it's irrelevant by minute number 5. Yeah.
I did want to ask you a question that's not sports related.
Okay.
What shows do you stream? Lately, Prime, Hulu, Netflix, HBO Max, all been promoting themselves. I'm thinking, gosh, I wonder what I stream. And then I thought, well, I got to stream this, this show on that one, this show on that one. What do you stream?
You know what? When the pandemic was in full bloom, and people weren't going anywhere, I streamed a bunch of Netflix shows, which I'm rarely on, but Ozark was my favorite. I watched like well, they had 3 seasons, I think, out of it at the time, and then there was like a year hiatus, and it came back. But of late, nothing. I do want to see something that's being promoted heavily, and it's not so much on Tennis Channel, but whenever I tune in to Showtime, a show that's on Netflix called Breakpoint, which is like one of these in-depth looks at the tennis tour.
Yeah.
So I always love those behind-the-scenes kind of Hard Knocks documentaries. Especially the ones that aren't necessarily staged as supposedly Hard Knocks is. What about you, Tony? What do you watch?
They have 2 really good ones. One on Arnold Schwarzenegger, which is excellent.
Oh yeah,
and one on O'Connor, the fighter.
Conor McGregor.
Conor McGregor.
Yeah,
his is absolutely excellent. And they are back to back, and there's two each, huh? What, Lubie?
I said nice, yeah. Conor McGregor one.
Yeah, Conor McGregor is excellent.
Okay,
so
yeah,
that's what I stream now.
Have you seen? By the way, I mean stuff that's even more readily available on the 30 for 30 on Bill Walton. I thought you would enjoy.
No,
that.
I want to see that.
That is excellent. That is really good.
Yeah.
I think you'll enjoy that, Tony.
Yeah,
it's right up your alley. The joy of living and how much sport meant to him, and the wizard, and all of this stuff. It's fantastic. It really is.
And living in the moment.
Being in the moment. I mean, it was amazing. I didn't realize how banged up this guy's feet were during his career.
Yeah, his feet were really gnarled.
Wow. I mean, it was like a Joe Namath type of story. And, he always struggled to come back from it. People would say, his pro career didn't come anywhere close to what it seemed his potential would be. But when you see what he went through to even do what he accomplished, including, and I remember that series in 1977 when Portland won the championship with Bill Walton. I mean, he was magnificent.
Yeah.
And, you're looking at maybe, I don't know, there have been a lot of good passers out of the post, but he was as good as any.
Yeah, he was.
Plus, he had, all the fundamental tools that they would look for. And it was very, very disciplined in what he did and had fun playing the game. It was great. So, yeah, I think you'll enjoy that. I wanted to get your thoughts on this because I've been watching quite a bit of the College Baseball World Series. There have been some very, very good games, tight games. And I'm amazed, Tony. I mean, even with those really good University of Miami teams where, you found out, and they used to draft players during the College Baseball World Series, which, people thought.
That was really bad.
Yeah.
That was, I remember and sitting in the car, we were going to a steakhouse or something, and I was with like 4 of the players.
You must have been with Sonny too, because there's no way he was missing that.
And like 4 of the players, and they were all talking about draft status. And I'm thinking to myself, my God, you're sitting here in the College World Series. Right. You should be thinking about a game. You shouldn't be thinking about what my draft status is going to be.
Yeah, you should be thinking about beating Mike Martin for the umpteenth time and knocking him out of the World Series with Florida State.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and it could be. Look, if you're thinking that you're going to be a very high draft pick, obviously you're dealing with some nerves about that. And then if it doesn't come to pass, you're going out there and playing a game while, you may be facing one of the bitter disappointments of your lifetime. They switched that up to avoid that distraction, but. I even those teams, I mean, and they might have had like 5 or 6 guys get drafted, but they weren't the caliber of some of these teams. These guys look beyond professional. I mean, I'm thinking back to, playing college baseball. We maybe had like 1 guy that had any pro potential in the entire, that included the freshman and the varsity team at the time. 1 guy, I think, that did go on to the pros. And, he was a relatively obscure player. These guys look like, how loaded is LSU, man? They have 2 guys that look like they could play in the majors right now.
Well, that's the beauty of this thing now, because 20 years ago they said it was the minor leagues could be.
It was like double A ball, yeah.
Could be A ball, could be double A ball. But now, if a guy stays 4 years, he could be a AAA player. He's going to bypass all that stuff and go right to the majors, or go to AAA and go right to the bigs after that. And I think you're getting more and more of that. They want to get their education. They want to, there are some that they get the outrageous bonus since they, jump out of high school. But I think now, if you're finding more and more, they're staying in school. And look at Vanderbilt, for example. They were through the roof. They fell off. Other schools, Wichita State, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma. They're schools that just continue to pump out good players.
Yeah, and on the SEC, I mean, LSU was always prominent going back to your man Skip Bertman, and even before that,
Paul
big time
Maneri.
program.
Paul Maneri was just awesome, and he took the Air Force, Notre Dame, and then LSU to the finals.
Yeah, no, I don't think. I mean, the new stadium has been in existence for how long? Because there was sort of an Ebbets Field, Polo Grounds type of charm to Rosenblatt Stadium.
There was
as the home for this, and now they have this new stadium that is cavernous. And nobody hits home runs there. And then on top of that, they have fans blowing the ball in. Not fans in the stands, but I mean, I think they actually put big fans out there.
Yeah,
and they get wicked changes of weather. Can occur at any time out there in Nebraska. But I don't know. It sort of changed the vibe at the College Baseball World Series. You think, Tom? I enjoyed those games at Rosenblatt a lot.
I do too, and I hate to say it, but boy, oh boy, that was quintessential baseball, and it was old school baseball, and the way it should be played, and the way it should be played in the venue that's meant to be. And now the bigger is better, and to get more fans, and it winds up being nothing. It winds up being the shell.
Well, was the stadium like too much of a relic, though? I mean, I wouldn't have had any objection to them maybe upgrading the place. It does seem like it's sort of like Lone Shark Park here, where anything left center to right center is Death Valley.
Yeah, I think that was it an old relic? No. Was it a doable upgrade? Yes, and they could have upgraded it. And instead, they built a brand new stadium.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I loved it. Did you ever? How many runs did you consume when you were at those games? Because you did a lot of College Baseball World Series, did you not?
I did 11 straight.
11 straight? They went. The Canes went 11 straight times.
Yeah.
Or were you just out there, in general? 11 straight years.
11 straight. Yeah. And
wow.
And it got to the point where the joke was, should I file for my voter's registration? Should I file for my my license there? And that I actually just did a story on that when I got there like the 11th time or whatever it was.
Yeah, it was like a 10-day stay. The thing would begin like on a Wednesday and go through till like the following Sunday.
Longer than that sometimes 2 weeks, because if it got rained out, you just kept going.
I remember, there were a couple of times I was out there 2 of the 3 years I was doing Canes baseball on the radio. And I remember a couple of times I had other jobs out of town that I went and did, and then came back to Omaha.
Yeah.
But you never had a runza, those things they were selling outside. They were kind of like it was like a beans and rice thing, I want to say.
Oh, yeah.
A taco shell.
I had one of everything.
A burrito wrap.
I had one of everything.
Yeah, I don't remember some of the other stuff they were hawking out there,
including fried ravioli.
Yeah,
but
nice.
Yeah, but there was a thing at the College World Series that you could get, and you could bring to your seat, and it would have mayonnaise on it, and you would dip your butter or whatever it was. Raviolis or French fries into the mayonnaise and eat it. That was
French fries with mayonnaise. You lost me there, Tom. Ketchup, maybe. Salt,
mayonnaise.
Well, but I mean, that's why all those guys look like they just ate everything that was on the farm. Omaha, I mean, and the steakhouses. I don't remember the name of the place Sonny took us to. That was a place we've talked about a few times where both of us supposedly picked up the tab for the entire
yeah.
coaching staff.
Yeah.
And on the expense report, got called on the carpet for that.
Oh, I never got called on the carpet because they always trusted me.
Yeah, and you were applying for your expenses at a different place there, Tony. You were sending them in to, NBC.
NBC corporate, yeah.
Sonny and I were in that little, I don't know if you remember the WIOD sports office.
Yeah.
But essentially, it was like a sound booth that they converted into, not even converted, they put a desk in there. And that was it.
You know, we could do an entire show on Sonny Hirsch.
He would just be sitting there at that desk, like sprawled out. And you're coming in to, to do whatever you had to do, like put together 18 Joe Zagacki pre-draft features.
Yeah.
And Sonny would just want to shoot the shit. He wouldn't move.
Yeah.
And you think, I got 2 hours to do this, Sonny. That was back in the day where you had to find the spot on the tape where you could cut it. And then you took a razor blade to the tape and then taped it together later on. And then you had to go back and forth like you were a DJ.
Hey,
and try and see if you could get the sound right.
I think we should do next week. We should try and do an all Sonny Hirsch and old school show, but I mean old school, about tapes, about
Yeah, I mean he was a rare breed. That's for sure. All right, Tony. So you've been watching the College Baseball World Series a little bit.
A little
very
bit.
Exciting games. Yeah,
very really
exciting
now
games.
we have LSU, Wake Forest today. That could be a good game.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, this guy Dylan Cruz. I thought I misread it. I don't know if that was just for the College Baseball World Series or for the season. The guy's hitting like 462.
Yeah,
it's going to be maybe the #1 draft pick overall. And then they got that guy. I think his name is Skeens. Who was throwing? I mean, he threw 40 pitches in the span of 8 innings, over 100 miles an hour.
Yeah,
and then had wicked complimentary stuff.
Yeah,
and I'm thinking to myself, my God.
Yeah,
it's like Roger Clemens is in George's box. When did this guy come back?
Roger Clemens. Well, remember the Hurricanes beat Texas, and Texas had Roger Clemens. I can't.
What's the guy? Sledell or whatever? Swindell. Greg Swindell.
Roger Clemens and Swindell.
Swindell, a left-hander too. That was
they were back to back, and they beat them both. They beat them both.
Yeah. It was always amazing to me, the failures of Florida State. Sorry, Lubie.
Oh, God.
They would come in there with just ridiculous teams and lose the first 2 games and go home. Mike Martin. Yeah.
Mike Martin.
Never got that title after like 50 years of having guys like Deion Sanders on his team.
And, he and Frazier were in business together.
Oh, yeah. What kind of, I mean, like a regular business?
They owned properties and businesses around.
Well, I hope Frazier was calling the shots.
Yeah, he was.
As to what to do on the business deals, because Mike Martin, he was known for maybe just making the wrong call consistently. All right, Tony, you been to any Texas Roadhouse visits lately?
Boy, I want to go bad. And Texas Roadhouse, you can't. Let me ask you something. Can you guys beat that steak anywhere you go?
No.
Value to quality, unheard of.
Between the steak, the bread, the salad, the peanuts, the beer, the margaritas, the salmon, the trout, you name it, you got it. The Texas Roadhouse is the only place to be. And it's family friendly. And by that, you can bring your family, or you can go with a couple, just by yourself, or you can go by yourself and just like belly up to the bar, sit down, have a cold beer, maybe have 2, have a burger. Their burgers never get credit, but boy, they have great burgers, and that just can't go unnoticed. With a slice of bread,
good stuff, huh?
Can't beat it.
Yeah, fresh baked rolls. You always talk about. You're very disciplined, though, Tony Segreto. That you can resist the bone-in ribeye. That you can resist the filet mignon. That you could resist all of this stuff and have a piece of salmon.
Yeah.
Now you savored it too. You're the anti-mayo. You actually savored every bite instead of just shoveling it in your face.
I promise you, the next time we go, I'll get the surf and turf.
There you go.
Okay.
Good man.
Yeah, I would like to see you
promise
down
you.
on a steak over there at Texas Roadhouse, and
Yeah.
all of the side dishes are great too, and,
The
and
side
they're very
dishes.
generous. I mean, it's not like you're ordering something a la carte there.
No,
You get
that's
a
a
bunch of sides with it, and it's
the,
fantastic. At
the,
Lubie, you had the chili and something else. You had like 3 meals.
yeah, the chili
Yeah, the
itself.
chili's great. It's great. Yep.
The chili itself is a meal. It's a whole meal. I
No
mean,
doubt.
Yeah.
For most
a
people, not for
bowl of
Lubie
this.
and me. Yeah.
Yeah, and
That's a starter, Tony.
but you ought to have you gotta have the fried chicken and the things off the hook.
So many things. Yeah. They do
Yeah,
well.
there's so many things. You can order something different every time, enjoy it, and go, I want to go back and may want to have that. I want to go back and have that. So I think it's worth going there, trying it. If you've never had, go there and try it.
Yeah.
And then if you like it, you'll go back. And if you've been there before and you've had a steak, go back and try the salmon. Can't hurt.
Yeah.
No, we got to get you
Sounds
up
actually
to
pretty
the Lubie location there in Coconut Creek.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah. It was a bit of a schlep, but it was well worth it to go down to the Miramar one. But when I lived in Miramar, University Drive was the last bastion of civilization to the west.
My wife and I were talking about it. Now, when they say west, they
Yeah.
mean west.
West. I mean,
west. You keep going. And now
you're dodging darts from Zulu warriors. They're hanging in the trees. You're like, what am I, Martin Sheen here?
yeah,
It's
exactly.
crazy. Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, Tony, we love you, man. You sound a good kid, and we'll look forward to having you on again next week. It's always a pleasure, and enjoy the week. Well, and thanks so much for joining us here on the show.
We're going to be longer next week.
All right, sounds good. Sounds good, man.
We appreciate it. Love you.
Tony, man. Tony doing it, man. Those college baseball World Series memories, actually pretty good for me, Lubie. I would have to say. I really enjoyed it. I went there very begrudgingly. I believe the first time I was thinking, what the hell am I going to do in Omaha, Nebraska for 2 weeks?
I do think it's like, I have to look it up, but what are the origins of
I don't
Omaha?
know why it's been there for so long, how it got started there, but I will say that they should never move it from there. Never.
Yeah,
The
I
way
guess
they
it's-
embrace, I mean, look at the crowds they have for these games. Fantastic. And, the other thing I've noticed, and you wouldn't think this to be the case, though, because, you have certain people that will travel with college teams that aren't football. And you would say that there's a lesser degree of travel from fans and boosters and alumni and people, that are following basketball teams. Is that a fair statement? That if you had the on the road, let's say, and their fan base, and this was one of the reasons that when they were doing selection committee deals for who got ball bids, and it didn't go by sort of an automatic system, sort of, that a lot of balls shied away from the University of Miami. Well, we think they're going to the Sugar Bowl. Oh no, we don't want those guys in New Orleans. Nobody shows up. They certainly didn't want them, in some of the West Coast bowls. So that was one of the things, and I can assure you that when I was doing basketball games, there was less than a handful of people. I mean, you could count. It was maybe slightly into double digits, the number of people that actually followed the team a little bit on the road. Very weak support for those teams, and it was Leonard Hamilton, and they were losing every night. So, you can't imagine that somebody's going to schlep to Queens to watch the Canes get beat by 30 by St. John's, at Alumni Hall, no less. Some dingy arena that you take a subway to, and you're hoping that you just don't get stabbed on your way out of there. But very poor. I'm impressed the following that these college baseball teams have. Are you watching some of these games and you're like amazed? How many people travel to Omaha, freaking Nebraska for 2 weeks? LSU, I mean, are they just crazy people in general? But every team seems to have a large contingent of fans there, which is impressive.
Well, LSU's been good for a long time. So their fan base has been following their baseball program for years.
Yeah.
Tennessee, again, is another SEC power financially, where they have tons of money. So you would think, and their alums and their fans are like all in. So,
and it's not like you're traveling a great weather location, right? It can be very nice there, but it can be absolutely hideous as well. In Omaha, where you don't know, the whole stadium might go in a cyclone anytime. But But I that's been impressive to me. I always enjoyed that event. If you're a baseball fan of any type, and you can kind of, whether you have a team that's actually in the 8 teams that are comprising the College Baseball World Series, and you are some kind of baseball purist, maybe you're Bob Costas or George Will, I would suggest, checking that out. It's kind of like for a racetrack fan going to Saratoga. I don't know that it's a must, but would it be a bucket list thing, Lubie? What are the odds you ever make it to a College Baseball World Series event and spend a weekend in Omaha, Nebraska? I would be more likely to have gone out there for a Terrence Crawford fight than for the World Series if I was the average sports fan, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see it. I guess outside of ESPN airing it, like how many people cover the College World Series? Like I haven't, since FSU's been years, I haven't paid any attention to it. Like I know it's a decent gambling venture. I know the professor will pay attention.
Oh, he gets into some bets on that? Yeah.
Yeah, I know he has in the past. I don't know about this. I haven't followed it really at all the last handful of years. So I don't know. I'm curious about how many people actually cover it. I know college sports has grown in popularity, but still.
Well, what do they break your knuckles if you go into the losers bracket after the first game? I don't understand in a tournament format, a double elimination tournament format. Obviously you were thinking, hey, it's advantageous to win that first game. But is it that big of an advantage? I think, you have to, I guess, then have concerns about how many guys are in the starting rotation for a college baseball team? 3? What would you say?
I don't know if they have 5. I think they have 4. I know that. I don't think they have 5.
So if you have a guy like this Skeens guy, I may be butchering his name, but I think it's Skeens, and you want to pitch him as much as you can, that would be the disadvantage then of falling into the losers bracket. You now have to play 1, maybe 2 games without this guy sniffing the mound, and he's the guy that can go out there and single-handedly win a ball game for you. So if you lose that first game, especially, and I don't think they had LSU didn't pitch him in the first game, which is weird. I don't know. It couldn't have been because he had pitched in, the regional finale? And who understands that structure, too? The regionals, and then you go to the super regional, and then you go to the Ishmael regional, and that. Why are we talking about this, Lubie? Because we were talking to Tony?
I pay attention to it, so I just let you and Tony talk about it. I have no clue. I saw last night LSU and Tennessee were playing. I'm like, yeah, good for them.
It was a good ball game. Yeah. That guy, Dylan Cruz, hit a home run, actually, in an impossible place to hit a homer, and he nudged it to the opposite field off sort of a high, difficult pitch to hit. I thought I saw where his average for the season, and I'm thinking this was his season batting average, what was somewhere around 450 or 460, with a ton of home runs. And most people believe he will be the number 1 overall pick in the upcoming, what would it be, free agent draft there? Major League Baseball draft. So, great quality of players and a lot of depth on these teams that wasn't there before. Even with the winning championship University of Miami teams, they didn't have that level of they did have, I remember that one year, and I don't think they won the title that year. Pat the Bat Burrell. Did they win with Burrell? The championship?
I think they may have won with Burrell.
It would have to be circa early 90s was when I was doing that stuff. All right, we're coming back with more. Howard Beck going to join us. We'll get into the baskets here. Wembanyama is going to be all over the morning news today doing interviews. I think he's a pretty compelling and together 19-year-old kid, especially, knowing that, look what he's dealing with here, Louis. He's going from some pro league in France, which we don't know. What would be the equality level or the quality level? What would you equate it to? Is that like G League, developmental leagues in the NBA? CBA? Or CBA, what was it? CBA, right? The one Phil Jackson won the championship with the Albany Patroons?
Canadian Basketball Association. Isaiah Thomas totally butchered it. When being something that existed and should have had a life to totally not existing anymore.
Yeah.
He made it not
Leave it to
exist.
Isaiah, yeah. We'll have to ask Howard Beck about that. He's going to join us here, and always an excellent analyst, man. Very precise, too, and in depth. So I think you'll enjoy Howard Beck. He's coming up in a moment to talk some baskets and our favorite subject, right, Lubie? The draft. The draft. You're loving. Look at you. You finally came to on the show. You've been kind of
love
tuned out the whole
it.
show, and then here we go. We mentioned the draft, and you're all
Not
in.
the whole show. I just have nothing to say about the College World Series. Like, you 20 minutes on the college is wonderful. I just have nothing to say about it. Like, I really didn't even know where we were. Like, are we at the World Series now? Like, are we actually there? Like, I paid no attention to it. Like, we had the NBA Finals, and then the same. Like, I was not paying attention. And then now the NBA. It's funny. The NBA offseason used to take time to it.
Yeah. Now it's already happening before the season ends. all of these rumors flying about. Bam Adebayo to the Portland Trailblazers for a just pile of draft picks, including the number 3 overall pick, which could be. It's either Brandon Miller or that Scoot guy, or is there somebody else that's in play that Pat Riley has up his sleeve? And he comes back after that very compelling press conference about how much he loves these guys and makes a blockbuster deal and sends Bam packing.
I mean, Bam's not going anywhere, but the hero stuff's my favorite. Like, he literally did that. He did that about Hassan Whiteside, where he's like, Hassan Whiteside's a pillar and he's a building block.
Him, yeah.
Traded him 2 days later.
That might have been his most, I don't know what kind of beating they had to take to unload Hassan Whiteside. And he went to Portland, didn't he? So we have a history of fleecing Portland in the past. I think we go right back there. Holy Dave Twardzik, man. All right, coming back with more in a moment. Now that. It's 8:30.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously. Friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched, steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Are we all in stable but critical condition? Life is, Lubie, in a general, more figurative sense. Would you say you're in but critical? I believe you are right now.
Probably.
On the threshold of getting married in the early portion of 2001. Don't you think it's a little soon, kid? You barely notice woman. What are you doing?
We've been together 4 years.
Well, I guess you know enough.
How longer do you want?
Is it you that's pushing for this?
It's equal. We're both very happy and in love. Gross.
Oh, my God. I mean, it's a foreign concept. You have where I'm coming from. 0 for 2 with a walk. And, right now I think I got a 3 in the marriage number 3. But, and only because of the benefit of a really poor call on a ball that was clearly right down the middle of the plate. You know, one of those Angel Hernandez calls. Get out of here.
Enjoy your trip work with lots of laughs. Thanks to Defo. Now on the Defo Show.
Well, it's good to know that conversation about the College Baseball World Series had appealed to at least one gentleman. And who do you think that might be? It's like if I asked the Mustang, hey, who do you think gobbled up that bone that was on the floor? And the answer, Skippy. And in this case, it's Jim Sarney who says, and UF has an entry that, has strong possibilities. I believe they're 2-0 in the tournament so far. And Jim Sarney points out Jack Caglianone, 31 home runs, and also possesses a 99-mile-per-hour fastball, is pitching today for the University of Florida. He's a two-way star. Imagine that. I mean, holy Shohei Ohtani. What are we talking about here, Lubie? I've been impressed at the talent level. It looked nothing like my 1970 Syracuse freshman team. Nothing like it. We had my roommate, Ralph Yaggi, and he had potential to maybe be, a pro, but probably was going to, end up doing something else with his life, which he did. And that was it. And then on the varsity, they had that Mike Barlow guy that I've talked about many, many times. Who, if you look him up, he might have lasted in the majors for about 11 years, but as kind of a fringe player coming out of the bullpen, he might have had a couple of years where, and a submariner too on top of that, threw the ball in the 90s, which was exceptional back then, and what was a scary guy to face, right-hander. Imagine standing in there in 12-degree temperatures, Lubie, with the wind howling straight into your face. And there's Mike Barlow, this Spider-Man. I think he was 6'5". He was also on the basketball team. Holy Gene Conley. Played basketball and baseball at the varsity level at the Cuse. And then he would come with that Kent Tekulve stuff and hit you right in the rib cage with like a 92-mile-an-hour fastball or three, which was, as I said, I mean, that was Vita Blue type velocity then. And that was it, right? It made you think about just chasing women and going to Vernon Downs, forgetting about. Sorry, Coach, I won't be able to make practice today. I tell you what, my rib cage is still busted up from that Barlow fastball that hit me. And is there any way we could build an indoor stadium here? Because this is fucked up, sending kids out there in the cold. All right, Howard Beck's going to join us in just a couple of minutes here. Are you at all interested? I still, I mean, as much as we rip this and mock drafts and all that stuff, I do find certain elements of the NBA draft, and my favorite component of the NBA draft is the guy that puts on the hat and talks about how great it is to be playing for the Pistons, and then it turns out they've already traded him to the Timberwolves.
That's what's great
cash
about the NBA
considerations.
draft.
Yeah.
Is they'll trade picks and players, but still let for cock the hat on.
Yes.
Like Weber's wearing the Magic hat, even though we all know he's freaking Warriors. It's like,
yes,
okay.
No, and it's terrific too, because everybody, I mean, goes ahead as if it was status quo. Oh yeah, look at that. He's a 76er. He's from Philadelphia. This is something. And then, they get off the stage there, and I don't know, is ESPN doing it? Is Bonnie Bernstein still with ESPN? I think so. Not Bonnie Bernstein. Susie Colbert is the one I'm thinking about. Bonnie Bernstein turned out to be pretty cool that time we had her on the show. I was impressed with her.
Bonnie Bernstein, I actually don't mind Colbert either, but I think Mike Andrews does everything NBA for ESPN these days. But it might be TNT.
She's very good. You know what? Quality. I mean, a young girl that really gets it for a top quality. There are a lot of young women that are involved in TV sports analysis now that have been very, very impressive. I don't think it's fair. There might have been a time where you thought, my God, does everybody have to be some voluptuous blonde to get one of these positions? We know it all goes back. Pioneering all of this was the lovely and talented Leslie Visser, who, of course, was extremely attractive. But, it wasn't quite in that, I don't know, I don't want to characterize it as, trying to get, kind of like the weather girl situation, where you're thinking she's, a meteorologist on top of all of this too, huh? Not bad. But, I used to get Susie Colbert after every guy stepped off the stage, and it was the same interview, and it did seem like she had borrowed the question from The Bachelorette, which was, how would you describe this journey to this point? And you have an 18-year-old kid that's still squeezing zits, and he comes off and he puts the cap on there for the Orlando Magic, and right after he makes this very heartening statement about how happy he is to be playing in his hometown, he's traded to Detroit and gone. All right, joining us right now, speaking of class, I mean, talking about, high-level, high-fashion type of stuff. Joining us right now, Howard Beck, one of our favorites, analyzing baskets. And we have so many things to discuss with him, contributing with GQ Sports. And we welcome Howard to the program. Howard, thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good morning.
We're doing all right. I shook up Lubie a little bit this morning. And I don't know. I mean, this has to be a wild time for anybody that's in the business of analyzing NBA, because you get crazy rumors that start, and then everybody wants to believe them. And I had Lubie half convinced today that Bam Adebayo, forget about Damian Lillard coming to Miami to be our personal, savior. It was going to be Bam Adebayo going to Portland for a number 3 pick, for a couple of players, and maybe some future picks. We just saw Pat Riley get up and in all sincerity embrace the fact that he loves these guys and would never take a sledgehammer to this team. Is there any merit to that whatsoever, in your opinion, Howard Beck?
I only saw a brief reference to it, so I don't know what the full context was. So you'll have to tell me to say Portland wants, which is fine. A lot of teams want a lot of guys.
Yes.
Doesn't mean anything.
Yes.
So I mean, you can leave it at that. I mean, if you gotta. Not every rumor is the same, and not everything is working at the same level. If somebody has reported that there's active talks, or that the Blazers think they can actually get him, or that Mike's offering him, then those are things that would require a lot more skepticism. If the report is simply someone's trying to make a run at him, so then teams make runs at players all the time, and they're rebuffed. And I look at it. Off the top of my head, do I think that the Miami Heat have any desire to part with Bam Adebayo, given who he is, what he means to the franchise, how young he is, their trajectory, and the expectation that he would probably be an anchor for them for years to come, and given the way that it usually operates, I don't think he'd be going anywhere. And if anything, obviously, if there's a discussion between those two teams, you would think that trying to pry loose Damian Lillard to add to Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, and then the Trailblazers are still not indicated they're interested in giving up Damian Lillard, and so they need to fortify around him. So, it makes sense that they might pursue Bam and a lot of other guys. But if it's just that they're in pursuit or talking to them, yeah, whatever, conversations happen.
I mean, yes, 100% that. It was Portland. And to me, look, and I give Portland credit as these smaller markets, getting a superstar who actually wants. Damian Lillard has made that clear. He would love to career there. I give them crying to grasp at every straw. I'm just curious. You're as dialed into the league as any. Loyalty is a great thing in life. And when you have a job, you'd love for your bosses to be loyal. However, we found in sports, especially basketball, loyalty only gets you so far. Right? Look, yes, Dirk stayed in Dallas, actually got a title. But Kevin Garnett stayed in Minnesota and barely got out of the first round. When is it time for Damian Lillard to just say enough's enough, Portland, but I want to win? Because it feels like the Trailblazers are close to winning. It feels like they've gone backwards the last few years.
The person who can answer that question is Damian Lillard, because it's not up to us to decide what his career should look like. He wants to stay there for his whole career. That has enough value to him that it means more to him than chasing a championship in another city. Then that's up to him. It's the more curious part of it to me, because if Lillard wants to stay, and as I just said, I think he should be able to determine his own life, his own career. If he wants to stay, great. But they don't have to honor that. I understand why they've done that, and I think it's cool that they've honored that. They're a franchise that has this situation as Dame is in franchise history. He has been loyal to us. We're going to stick by him, and we're not trading him unless he wants to be traded. The problem is, it's not the best thing for the franchise long term when he's now in his early 30s and limited time left playing at a really high level. And if you can't get to a level as a team that takes advantage of that, then the logical thing to do is to move him, replenish your assets, get young players and picks and all that. So there's a practical thing, so I think it's much more of an interesting discussion of the pragmatic they have to make as an organization, rather than the I think kind of emotion that Lillard's like, I just want to stay here, So I don't know that we're any closer to a resolution there. Obviously, the Trailblazers still think maybe whether they can trade, the third pick, or whether they're trading Anthony Simons or whoever to help around him. They still feel like they can somehow, become a respectable team in short order again, and maybe they'll pull it off. We'll see.
The NBA draft lottery show used to have even less appeal to me than Red on Round Ball, as I guess it was a filler in halftimes at halftimes of NBA games. Now it became its own separate entity, although it was of extreme interest this year. I did see a piece, Howard, I don't know if you saw this, with Jerry West talking about the LeBron draft, where the Grizzlies had a protected number one pick, and he was devastated, crushed, Said it was the worst thing that ever happened in his basketball lifetime, except for maybe losing to the Knicks in the finals that one year when Memphis drew the number 2 spot. It was huge again this year, and it might have been as big as the Milwaukee Phoenix coin flip back in the day, where Milwaukee ended up with Kareem and Neil Walk went to the Phoenix Suns to go ahead through a rather undistinguished career. Wembanyama, what do you make of this? I mean, is there any way to tell? I mean, he appears to have the demeanor to be very successful. What do you make of his NBA prospects at this point? Are you in as much hyperbole talking about this kid as everybody else?
I don't think you're going to find anybody in basketball who's not excited about Victor Wembanyama and who doesn't believe that he's a generational type who could absolutely have a Hall of Fame type career. But we say these things sometimes just with everything that we have in front of us, right? You can see the outline of it, right? He's like 17. He's got guard skills. He's like even taller Kevin Durant in that sense, right? And he's going to be along these lines of these unicorns, these 7-footers, like it's a virtual 7-footer. Giannis is close to 7 feet. These modern day players who are super tall, super long, and play all over the court. And Wembanyama is almost like the ultimate version of it. He's got 3-point range. He's really fluid. That's the other thing for as tall as he is. He's really fluid. He's not gawky the way that Porzingis was when he first arrived. And everybody around the league is very excited about him, and for good reason. But look, we never know until we know, right? A guy's got to actually get to the league, and you got to hold him, you got to adapt to the NBA game, and all these other things. And I think it's often a little bit, dangerous for us to project forward too much. I will be or can become in the league because, you need some good luck with especially with regard to health. A lot of times it depends on on where you land. And fortunately for him, he's in a possible place. He's Spurs, so a lot of guys end up with really bad organizations because that's usually who's drafting at the top. Yeah. But it takes the work ethic and the time in the gym and everything else. The good news is, as you alluded to, he's got the right makeup. He seems like a really good guy, really bright, and has passion for the game, which again is part for some guys who arrive and cannot make the most of their careers is because some of them just don't love the game.
So I was going to ask about the Bradley Beal now with the Suns, but you just gave me a natural transition into a guy who in this level of generational talent, but it felt like he was going to change the game. He was something that at 270 could dunk like he was LeBron. Zion Williamson is someone that I'm so confused. But coming out of Duke, he did say all the right things. And we heard that he did like to work out. And yes, weight was an issue, but he was going to get it under control. And he has just fallen off the rails the last, I guess, his NBA career started. He hasn't played more than half a season. He's never gotten his weight under control. Now he has whatever issue with women that you would think teenage / 20-somethings, but he's totally lost control of it. Like, is he done in New Orleans? And then if you're another franchise, how do you even try to corral Zion?
I came to the conclusion sometime or so myself that I thought that if I were the Pelicans, and it's easy for me to say, I would seriously look to get out of the Zion business because I just lost faith in the idea that as great as he's been when he plays, he doesn't play nearly enough. He doesn't seem to be particularly responsible about himself, his career, his body, and I just don't trust the trajectory of his career at this stage. But it ends up in the exact place that you just said, which is, well, how do you even value him? If he's on the market right now and it's not entirely clear, if you're another, how do you even decide what's worth or what you're willing to give up for him? Because he's on a max deal, paying him $100 million over the next however many years. So he's, you're in, and he's reliable. After year one, you go, okay, some bad luck with sure he's got a body type that makes it hard. But after year 2, then it's a bigger concern. And now it's like 3 years in, and every single season is the same plot playing out over and over again. He plays, he looks amazing, he gets hurt, he's gone the rest of the season.
Yep.
How many times can you do that? We cannot bank our entire franchise on this guy. And so, yeah, if I'm the Pelicans and I've got all this other talent around, I'd certainly more than willing to give him up to try a different. I just don't know how you properly assess what he's worth in trade and whether another franchise is going to be willing to give up a ton to get him.
Howard Beck guessing with us here. Yeah, no problem. Howard Beck, it sounds like you have a vulture hovering overhead.
Brooklyn.
Guessing with us here on the program. You can catch his work in GQ Sports and probably other platforms as well. All right, this gentleman, this always baffles me. Lubie and I always talk about how is it that ESPN will find a guy like Mike Tannenbaum that buried 2 pro franchises and then have him on as a qualified expert. And, we've seen this in other sports as well. And in this case, it was absolutely, startling to me that this even popped up. But he buried the Continental Basketball Association. He buried the Knicks, buried the Pacers. What is it about Isaiah Thomas that has the Phoenix Suns interested in having him be a consultant of any type in their organization?
Don't know. I can't fill in any blanks there. I did cover Isaiah for some years. We were here in New York, and it was a wild experience.
Yeah, it really was. Including incidents, where James Dolan, who's not inclined to, be, happy with the idea, was having to pay off, lawsuits and all kinds of stuff. And they keep bringing this guy back. All right. We talked about Wembanyama, and then there's a lot of speculation, and as there should be. What happens next? You hear about Scoot Henderson. He's supposedly a cinch to make it as a point guard. Maybe not an impactful player immediately, but certainly somebody that within a couple of years might develop. They're talking about Derrick Rose and all kinds of parameters that they're qualifying his skills at. Supposedly he is either going to be 2 or 3. This Brandon Miller out of Alabama, did he overwhelmingly impress you? Seemed like besides some of the issues that took place, he didn't make that great of a showing. I don't know if he was injured or not. I want to say yes during the NCAA tournament. Maybe that diminished his performance a little bit. But what happens after that? Because, this is where all these rumors are being sparked from and triggered from, that there could be chaos from like number 2 on.
Potential for chaos is less about the draft class and much more about situations that a lot of these teams find themselves in. Portland at 3, we already kind of talked about. Are they if they're drafting a player? Well, that player he is, and I think Scoot Henderson, Brandon Miller, fine. Like Scoot in particular, I know a little bit more about. I think he's going to be great. But if you're drafting those guys at that age, you're not trying to win immediately because rookies almost never help you win immediately in the NBA. So you can't look at a young guy and say this is the guy who's going to help Damian Lillard get us back to the or beyond. So the Trailblazers have to consider trading that pick. So there's one piece. Then the fact that it has the number 2 overall pick, and if they're, in their view, do you take Scoot and put him next to LaMelo Ball, and how much do you think they'll fit together, or are you go? So now you got the volatility of 2 and 3 decisions may rest on what Charlotte does at 2. But then after them, Detroit and Houston are both teams that are trying to turn the corner after several years of. So they're not necessarily looking to get another 19 or 20-year-old who's not going to help them immediately. And so there's certainly a view that Detroit and Houston may want to trade their picks or trade down in order to leverage the value and get veterans instead. So you've got a lot of those situations. Indiana is at 7, I think, and talk of them trying to flip their pick as well. So, and then on top of everything else, you have a new CBA at the NBA that, all kinds of penalties for the high spending teams, and everybody's trying to shed salary to try to make sure that they, get too far too quickly in their payroll. So there's just a lot of movement.
Right, go ahead, Louis.
I know we got to wrap up with you, but I did want to touch on the finals a second. Everyone, it's funny, like the finals happened like yesterday, and the offseason is so big now that it literally starts at, which is making his last basket. Where people are focused on, are the Nuggets a great team? Can they be a dynasty? I think it's not fair to Jokic to even go there. Where do you do with Nikola Jokic? Because to me, he's already sort of cemented himself as one of these all-time great big. His offensive skill set, like the dude was doing 25, 14, and 10. And as a Heat fan, I was excited that we held him, quote unquote, in check. Like watching this guy play basketball, the way he plays is so hard to comprehend because he looks like the Claude. And then on offense, it's like Bill Walton reincarnated. Like to me, Jokic has already cemented himself as one of these great players, and he's still a young dude. You with the Nuggets and Nikola Jokic as you project forward?
Well, they should stick around for a while, but even as I say that, I'm always mindful of the fact that in the NBA things change very quickly sometimes, and where we used to talk about, great young teams like the Nuggets, and hey, this team is going to be domination for the next 7 to 10 years. Now we talk about everything in 3 to 5 year cycles because contracts are shorter. Guys move around a lot. And, especially as I say into this new CBA, it's going to be harder and harder to keep teams together. Now, the issue immediately, they do have a bunch of guys who fit really well together, who are really talented, who obviously have chemistry, who are under contract. And typically you look at that and say, okay, this team should be a force in the West and in the NBA for years. And probably they will be. But, as I say, things change fast, and they got to keep, Jokic, Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, that whole core contiguous. I mean, all those are. This is not a super team. They're not built around, like 3 elite players. They, and Jamal Murray is knocking on the door of the elite, but he hasn't made an All-Star or All-NBA team yet. But this is a team that's kind of more of an ensemble, and so every piece matters, and you got to try to keep them all, and you got happy contractually, and that's always a challenge in this league. But if you're looking ahead to next season, win as the clear favorites, and with a lot left to happen, off season here left for the Suns to try to now fortify around their new big three. Good luck with that. The Lakers and Clippers are trying to put themselves back together on some level. The Warriors are trying to put themselves back together. So there's a bunch of Kings and Grizzlies are young teams that obviously finished second and third in the West. So there's plenty of high level competition in the West, but some of these teams have a little more volatility than others, and the Nuggets will be the favorite among all those. No one's standing still.
Excellent stuff as always, Howard. I know you have to run. Thanks so much for spending time with us today. Very illuminating, and looking forward to your coverage and all of the happenings that occur in the draft and the aftermath shortly after. So thanks so much for being with us.
Got it. Thanks, fellas. Take care.
Howard, appreciate it.
Very good, man. All right, I won that one, Lubie. Yeah, we got a chuckle. I was going to just say, Isaiah, you say what? And see what happens. Get a reaction here. But yeah, the CBA, I forgot that he crushed the CBA as well. I guess it was as a coach more than an executive. Was he an executive with the Pacers as well, or just a coach?
Oh, he was like the president thing. He led the league.
Oh, like Larry Bird? Yeah, he ran the show.
Ruined him. Yeah, well,
ruined him. Yeah, buried him, man.
He was like commissioner league and like fucking bankrupt.
Yeah,
it was like a joke.
Donald Trump, to the USFL, where they ended up with $3 as they tripled the payment that had to be made by the NFL for running a league that was very much in violation of any antitrust law, right? I mean, they just wiped out the USFL. Thank you, Donald Trump, for putting the USFL on at the very same time as the National Football League. Who was going to win that? Unless it was backed by the Saudis. You think that was his early ties to the Saudis, that he had them roped in and saying, you know what, El Chico, you can end up owning the NFL someday if you get me involved. I'll be president of the United States one day, too. And the guy probably looked and laughed and said, I mean, that's as far-fetched as anything I could ever imagine. All right, we did get a laugh there and a chuckle out of Howard Beck, which is good. And he's excellent. He knows his stuff, right? There's nothing you can't throw at him that or you can't get to a topic that he isn't pretty well versed in on basketball. It will be kind of crazy because all the speculation is going to be just a wild juxtaposition there in the first round of the draft. So it's going to get very confusing as usual. Is UB Brown still involved in the coverage? Because that would make it very, very enjoyable to watch.
I feel like TNT does the draft and does it. Yes.
Oh, okay. That would be great. Yeah, I much prefer TNT. We get away from all of that other shit, right? Not that I have anything against these guys. They're all very professional or whatever, but it does seem like the TNT analysts are a lot more enjoyable from an entertainment standpoint. Would you say that's fair, Lubie?
It's ABC and ESPN. Ugh, they're horrendous in basketball.
Yeah. Greenberg has all this paperwork, man. I mean, a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff to digest. I don't know. I mean, if you're a stat freak, I suppose it's good. I'm a firm believer, and I understand, this evolution of numerology that's worked its way and seeped its way into sports to a fault, has it not? Where there's just so much overanalysis and quantification by numbers that you forget, hey, I mean, this guy's a bozo, man. Under pressure, he's going to fall apart. I guess they factored that in, but, is it too defined by numerology, sports today? What would you say, Lubie? And less on the Earl Weaver aspect, which, what's funny about Weaver, with all of the times that we reference him as being a guy that managed by gut instinct, he was one of the first to really come up with this numerology and embrace it. I mean, it was out there, but Weaver was the guy that had the stats, and he knew that John Lowenstein hit really well against this particular guy, and so he had him in that famous platoon, and that's what he was basing this on, and everybody thought, well, that's tremendous, but I think there needs to be a balance, no, Libby? Can you go strictly by sabermetrics and making decisions on ball clubs? I would think not. All right, we have to run. We'll be at the Even Keel Fish Shack later on today. I think the fish and chips are a must, no? What do you think, Libby?
I like to try different stuff there because I know what's cool about Brad and Dave and what they do over there is and they embrace South Florida and they embrace the different times of the year. But I can't fight you. That is, I don't want to say my favorite thing because I like a lot of what they do there, if not everything.
Really well fried fish, though, if it's a good piece of fish too.
Well, that's the thing.
That's essentially what fish and chips are. Yeah.
Well, you use the fish because you're trying to cover a piece of shit fish. What I'm impressed with them is they take a really nice piece of fish and they put a slight batter on just to give it a different kind of flavor.
Yeah.
But they don't overwhelm you with this deep fried gook. Like they found a way to make fish and chips light, which is pretty impressive.
Yes. They got their own fries there. I'm going to try and dodge those, but I don't think I can resist one bite of the fish and chips here today. I know I would suggest you do your usual MO, which is put one of the large pieces that they give you on Mayo's plate before he slimes the rest of them, and then we can split the other stuff. It's a very generous portion, too. I mean, and it's fresh. My, man. All right, I'm already ready for that. We'll be coming your way with that at 12 o'clock. Next week on the show, on Tuesday, we're going to start that thing a little bit late, but it'll be worth tuning in for you sports fans because live and in person will be FAU head basketball coach, he of great sensational Cinderella-type heroism this year, taking FAU to the semifinals and, giving a dynamite battle there to San Diego State. I mean, by all rights, you thought they were going to win the game right to the very end and make it to the finals where maybe they would have gotten bludgeoned by UConn, but nonetheless, they got as far as anybody could have in their wildest dreams have anticipated. And he will be live with us from 12:30 to 1:30 or about 12:45 to 1:30. Well, we'll get the show started at 12:30 from Talia's Tuscan Table, which has become a quick favorite on the Mayo bandwagon. No? He's looking forward to that, man, because they brought out like plates that could have fed 20 people of like 7 different items that they use. I mean, they're mostly known for catering, but you can eat in the restaurant, which I would think would be dynamite, no? Price is extremely reasonable. But Dusty May will be with us, so looking forward to that, yeah.
Well, FAU is returning most of their team. FAU, a lot of the time you'll see these upstarts. And the tournament, the last 10, 15 years, we've seen this where VCU or whatever gets to the Final Four, but then the next year they're good and they fall back. The difference this time around is FAU returns most of their team. FAU is slated to be a top 5 team.
Wow.
to be like top 5 in the country going into next basketball season.
It's hard to judge. I mean, I haven't looked at their schedule, and it would not be uncommon for FAU to play a couple of heavyweights, previously. But I don't know. I mean, do they have the kind of out-of-conference schedule that would give you reason to believe? I mean, they're going to win a lot of these games, obviously, but do they have a competitive enough schedule for you to say, wow, okay, they legitimately are top 5 contenders? They proved it last year. Yeah.
The AAC, but the problem is for the AAC is losing 3 of the real teams. They had, like Cincinnati.
So they're in there against like Bowling Green, is what you're saying. Okay.
Exactly. So it will be better than I think they were in the Conference USA. So it'd still be a step up. The step up they were hoping it was going to be. Look, if you win your games, it's not college football. Like, you just need to get in, as they just showed you, as they were one of the last teams in.
Sure.
And they the Final Four, and honestly, they were the better team in that semifinal game. They just outlasted them. Like,
they kind of grinded them down in a very ugly fashion. That was unfortunate. Yeah. But anyway, Dusty May is going to be with us, and he was a real good guy when he was on with us. I don't know if he is, what would you say, existential in his conversation as Tom Herman was. He seems to be more along the straight and narrow. So when Mayo hits him with the Skyline Chili question, he's liable to look at Mayo and say, what the fuck is this? In his head, where he says, well, I'm not familiar with that particular establishment, Michael. Would you care to move on and talk about the team? That could be what it comes down to. And that Special K is going to be screaming in the background, hey, ask him about, the can drive. And talk about the pasta, will you? Come to think of it, I might just take a pass on that one. No, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. I like Dusty May. Yeah.
I just a lot. It's like Chris Visser at the goddamn radio.
Oh, yeah, like, waving in the background. Hey, mention this hairspray that he's hawking, huh?
It's like
we've been through a lot together, Lubie. We deserve the break that I believe is coming, at least according to all of my horoscope predictions for the last couple of days. This is a time there. Maybe is there a full moon around my birthday also, which is coming up in a couple of weeks? Maybe. All right. Maybe. Don't let me eat too much today at Even Keel. I don't want to go off this thing too badly.
Never actually. You actually watch yourself a lot at Even Keel. Mayo and I pound. This is hard for me to turn down.
I don't mind. I enjoy watching you take advantage of one of the fringe benefits of doing the show, which is stuffing your face at various fine restaurants. We're very lucky, man, right, when you think about it. I mean, we're going to all good places. It's almost impossible to resist. All right, so we'll see you later on, 12 o'clock today on South Florida Live, the Mike Mayo Lunchbox Show. And Mayo showing no restraint.
Yeah, he never has restraint. But we will not have to have restraint. We will have a full Highly Part Trivia Challenge tomorrow as Dave Gurgley is back in the fold.
Oh, good. Okay. That'll be a lot of fun because there's a possibility for some evolvement of that show, I believe. I think on the national higher, profile level, this thing's going to be a big hit. But can we get the Polyman back, Lubie? That's the question. The Polyman on video. Is he ready? I don't know if I can do it today. No, we can't have that. What you need in this business, especially, when starting new enterprises, is reliability and consistency. Correct, sir? You know this. You I can count on. So I can count on these other guys. I know Gurgles will be there, but we want the Polyman to make a comeback on this thing because this was his calling all along, Lubie. It only took us 25 years to get to the point where there was actually going to be an offering on this level. Well, who are those Fugazi guys that you were talking to that time that had the sports network that wanted us to pay to be on there? It was called what the hell was that? You met him at the Super Bowl and you were all enthusiastic. And then,
went out of Houston, South had a show there.
What was it called?
I know what you're talking. I know what you're talking about. I can't remember the name.
And I remember calling a guy, and it was like insulting. It really was.
Yeah, it was
it was the last time I remember being completely insulted on a telephone call when the guy was making suggestions about how we should go about this business. And I thought, you know what? Stick it up your ass. I didn't say that. I thanked him very much for his time and the consideration. All right. We'll see you next time as we leave you know that.
The time.
It's 9:07.
The time. Let's go to eat a damn snack.
To my soul.